Hello folks, in the previous video we have made this to-do list application and we have used PostgreSQL as the database. Now in this video we will learn about Prisma and we will see how Prisma makes it much more simpler. So now in the application, if I go to the index.js file, we can see that we are writing raw SQL queries like delete from to-do where the to-do ID is equals to our argument. Now what Prisma does is it will encapsulate all of these SQL queries into simple functions and we don't have to write raw SQL. Now it will be much more simpler and it will also give us type safety. Now here all of the queries are strings, but Prisma will allow us to get the types. So for example, this to-do ID, it will be able to give us what is the type of the to-do ID and it will make our application much more secure. Now to get started, we will look at the official Prisma documentation. So this is the Prisma homepage, prisma.io. You can also check it out. And Prisma is a next generation Node.js and TypeScript ORM. And ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping. Now here we will click on Quick Start and it will tell us that how we can set up Prisma. So initially it is asking us to create a new directory and then move to the directory. It is named Hello Prisma, but let's say I will name it API_Prisma. Then let's move to the directory. Okay. Now we will do npm init -y. And this -y or -y means that we will basically saying yes to all the questions that it will ask. What is the package name, author name, and everything. So it is initialized inside the API Prisma, and then we have to do npm install TypeScript, tsnode, and few more things. So let's copy it and let's paste it over here. And then moving forward, we will initialize TypeScript. And then we have to install Prisma and basically we have to initialize our database. It is mentioned SQLite, but we will use PostgreSQL. So let's go back to VS Code and initialize the TypeScript. It will create one tsconfig file, something like that. So we have the tsconfig file, and here one more thing we can do, and that is here we will have something called root dir and out dir. So out dir, we can make it let's say dist. So what will happen is all the JavaScript files that will be transpiled will be inside one dist folder. So let's keep it like this, and then let's install Prisma. So go back to VS Code and paste npm install Prisma save dev, and also let's copy this command and we will use Postgres instead of SQLite. So it may be taking some time to install Prisma because it is a heavier library, and meanwhile inside the API Prisma we can write one index.ts file. So let's create one index.ts file, and here to get started, let me simply console log, let's say, okay, anyway, these things are installed. So let me install the last thing. Instead of SQLite, I will write PostgreSQL and let it do its job. And meanwhile here let me write console.log hello world. Yeah, so everything is installed here, and now here if I simply do tsc, we will see that it will create one dist folder, and inside we will find the index.js with the hello world. So we have a dist folder and here we have index.js, and that has basically the same thing, hello world. So basically all our TypeScript code will be transpiled and kept here, and from this index.js we can run our app. Okay, so after this command is executed npm init data source provider, we will have something called a folder called Prisma, and inside we have this schema.prisma. So inside this schema.prisma we have to set up our model. So right now we have basically one provider, that is PostgreSQL, and one environment, that is one database variable. We will see what this variable is. It will be basically the variable that will connect us with our database. So when we were working on the API, we had to basically write something. So inside the API we have a db.js and we have something called pool. So basically the same information will be used to connect with our database in Prisma. So let me just see what is a Prisma schema or model. So here we have a user model and a post model. So this is basically the model how the Prisma will set up our database. So our data should be looking like this. This is something that it expects, but this is a user and a post, possibly for a blogging application, because we have title, content, published, and those things. For a to-do list, it will be much more simpler. We will only have a to-do, and there we will have some small things. So let me copy this thing and paste it in our schema.prisma file. But here we have a to-do and not a user. So I will change the model name to to-do. I will keep the ID as it is, int and auto increment. Instead of the email, we need one, let's say description, DSC. Type will be string, and it should not be unique. We can remove the name and posts, and here we will keep uncompleted, and which will be boolean, and the default value will be false. So the checkbox will be unchecked when we are adding a to-do. So that's all, and after that we need to run one command, and that is called npx prisma migrate div. And what this will do is it will basically create our database and everything that we need. So I will go to my pg admin, and here we already have a Prisma DB, but what I would like to do is I will delete it by force, and I will create another Prisma DB. So let me create a new database. Let's name it Prisma DB2 and save. So we have a new database, we have schemas, and here right now we don't have a table, but once we run this command we will have the table. So I will go to API Prisma folder, and here let me just run this command, and it will take a while to run this thing. Meanwhile, in our index.ts file we can start creating our backend routes. So yeah, also this thing is done, and once this is done, we can see in our Prisma, I think, okay, please make sure to provide valid database credentials. Yeah, so here in our schema.prisma we have environment database URL, and we need to configure that. So this is not configured, so we have John Doe random password. So instead of John Doe, the user is Postgres. If you have watched the previous video on Postgres SQL, you will know. And my random password is abcd1234. Yours will be different, and the DB will be Prisma DB2. That's all. And now we can run the same command. So it will take a while to run this thing. Meanwhile, let me create my backend. So const express equals to require express, then const my .env equals to require .env, then const cors equals to require cors. Okay, so these things are done. And now if I go to my Prisma folder, we have something called migrations, and inside we have a folder, and here we will have something called migration.sql, which is basically something similar to our model but in SQL. So Prisma generates SQL for us, and which is good. We don't have to write these things on our own. So let me close this thing. And also in our database, if I refresh, so let me simply refresh this thing. We will go to our schema, and we have tables, to do, and Prisma migration. So if I run the first view the first 100 rows here, we will see that we have our ID, description, and completed, but right now it doesn't have a value, which is correct. Okay, so our data, basically our app is connected to our PostgreSQL database through Prisma. So we now need to create our app. So in my index.ts file, I will quickly create one backend. This is all simple stuff. So after this, we will do .env.config, and then we will need a port. So port equals to our process.env.port or 3000, and then we will create one app. So const app equals to express, and then we will have to use some middlewares. So app.use, not sue, we are not suing anybody. So express.json, which will allow us to read from the body, and also app.use our cors. Now we will create some base routes. So app.get our base route, and this base route will have access to request and response. and we will simply do res.json and message, and let's do to-do list Prisma homepage. Little bit long, but that's okay. Now we can do app.listen to our port, and then we can simply do one console log. So log app running on port and our port number. That's all. Okay, so now we can run our app, but before that, in our index.js we still have hello world. So what we can simply do is we can do tsc -- watch. So anytime we have changes in our TypeScript, it will automatically create the JavaScript for us. And after that, so it is created. So in our test, we can simply do nodemon index.js, and our app will start. Now we can go to localhost 3000, refresh, and we have to do list Prisma homepage. So our app is running, and now we have our basically our base route. Now let me create some additional routes for our actions, like for our CRUD operations, I would say. So app.get, we need a to-dos, and it will be an async request and response. Inside we will have a try catch. The catch part is more simple, so res.json error, and in our try part we have to write our logic. And also before the get, let me also create another post. So this post is basically for creating to-dos, so let me keep it at the top, because I will write the post first, and then we will work on the get and other routes. So what do we need in the post? So we know that when we are trying to create a to-do, we are sending one to-do description. So from the body of the request, we will have access to something called DSC equals to request.body. And now using Prisma, we have to add the body into our database. So how can we do that? So let's say we have a function that creates a to-do. So I can write const new to-do equals to await create to-do, and inside we can pass the description. Right now we don't have a function called create to-do, but we will create it. But let's assume we have. And then after that, we can simply do res.json, and inside we will pass a message to-do created, then success true, and lastly we will also pass a new to-do as new to-do. Now we can also write the create to-do function inside our route also, but we will keep the route simpler, and I will create another file where I will keep all my functions. So in our app Prisma, let me create another folder. Let's name it controllers, and inside I will create another file called todo.ts, and here I will have my function called create to do and all other functions also, and it will have access to do description. And then we need to use Prisma to add things. Also lastly, we can do module.exports, and we will destructure and export create to do. So now what we can do inside our basically create to do function. So we have to use Prisma, and to use Prisma we have to import few things also. So we will import Prisma client from @Prisma client, and we have installed it before. And then we have to create a variable called Prisma equals to new Prisma client, and that's all. And now inside my to-do description also there is some sort of error, and let's see. So to-do desk is declared, but its value is never read. Okay, we will read its value, so no issues with that. So let me create something here. Let me name it const new to do equals to await Prisma dot and here we will have something called to do, because we have created a table called to do. So prisma.todo.create, and this create is a function from Prisma using which we don't have to write SQL queries, and we can basically do the same thing. So if we use SQL, we have to do insert values and whatever we did in the last video, but as you can see using Prisma it becomes very simple. So inside the create, what we have something called data, and inside the data we have something called description. So I will write something like this. So data, and inside the data we have a description, which is basically our to-do description. That's all. And lastly we have to return the new to do also. Okay, so here is some error in the description, is not assignable to type. Okay, this is some TypeScript issue, so there is no need to worry about that. So now I will come back to my index.ts. Also, since we are doing watch inside the dist, also the todo.js will be created by default. So let me just close this thing. We will come to the index.ts, and here we have to import the create to do also. So const destructure create to do equals to require from my controllers, we will import to do. That's all. Now our app has restarted, and let's see we are able to create the to do or not. So I will go to my postman, and inside the postman I have add to do, and here I have description right AI, and let me try to send, and we have message to do created success true, and ID is 1, description right AI, and completed is false. So that means our to do is created. So if I go to pg admin, and let me simply try to view the first 100 rows, and let's see we get something or not. So it is querying, and we have ID 1 right AI false. So that means using Prisma we are able to populate the database. So our create to do works. That's good. Now let me just try to create few more functions, and let's try to do the remaining things also. So we will have if like one route for all the to-dos, and then we will have another route, and this is for an individual to do. So to-dos / ID. Okay, then what are the different routes we need? We need one route to edit the to do. So we will simply do let me just copy this thing. Okay, this whole thing, copy, and here it will be app.put, and we will edit it to do by the ID. So it should be put, not out. And after the put we need something for delete also. So we will delete the to-dos by ID, one individual to do by ID. So this should be delete. And lastly we should also be having a delete all. So here we will remove the ID, and basically it will delete everything. So now let me try to create all of these functions, and then let's see what we can do. So inside our to-dos, how we can basically access everything. So we have a create to do function to create a to do. So similarly, let's assume we have a function called get to dos to get all our to dos. So here I will write const to dos equals to get to dos. That's all. And then we will simply do one res.json to dos. That's all. And get to dos function we will write. Now for individual ID, what do we need to do? First of all, we will get the ID from request params, and then we will get a to do. So to do equals to await, and let's say we have a function called get to do, and we have to pass our ID, and this ID could be one string. So we have defined our IDs to be int. So for type safety we will do one number of ID here, and then we will simply do res.json to do. Now we have the put. So for the put also what we need to do, we will have first of all the ID equals to request.params, and for the put we will also have access to our description as well as our completed. So destructure dsc comma completed from the request.body, and then we will, let's say, have another function. So what we can do is let's say we will do await update to do, and inside the update to do we will pass all of these things. So number, ID, then our description, and also the completed. And then let's say we will send some response. So res.json, let's give one message only. That message is to do updated success true. Okay, and then we have our delete, and the delete will also be similar. So we have ID equals to request params, and then we will simply delete. So delete to do, and we will pass the ID, and that's all. Lastly, we will also send one res.json. The message will be to do deleted and success is true. Okay, now I think we only have the clear all or delete all to dos thing left. So doing this is very simple. So I await delete delete all to dos, and that's all. We don't need to pass anything. And lastly, res.json message all to dos deleted success true. So our backend is created. Now we have created lots of functions, like we have used lots of functions. So now let's create all of these functions in the todo.ts, and then we will also export them. So we have a function called function get to dos, and we don't need an input here. So how can we get all the to dos? So let's say we have we have a variable called to dos. Now how can we get all the to dos? So we can simply do await prisma.todo.find many with no arguments. So this will find all the to dos, and lastly we will do return of to dos. So this will return all our to dos. Let's try to see we get it or not. So right now if I go to get to dos and send, okay, we are not getting anything. Let's try to find out why, and that is because we are not exporting it. So we will simply export this thing get to dos, and in our basically index.ts also at the top after the my create to do, we will also import get to dos. Now if I send, okay, I think app is not yet loaded. I think there is some issue still. Add to do, write AI, read AI, send, read AI is here, get to dos, send. So for some reason we are not getting it. Let me try to find out why. So we have our to dos here. We are trying to do to dos get to dos, and we are also having get to dos here. And okay, so the issue is that we are not doing an await here. So what happens is there is a little bit lag in the response time before it is loading the to dos. So that is why we are getting an empty object in Postman. So now if I do a send, we are getting 1 and 2, write AI and read AI. And to prove my point, let me add one more thing. Read, let's say code, send, to do created, get to dos, send, and we have read code. So it works. So now let me just create the other things. So we have get to dos, and then we have get to do, and let's also see we have await everywhere or not. So yeah, we have. So now in our todo.ts, the next function that we will write is async function, and we will write get to do, and this get to do will have one ID. So let's name it to do ID, and then what we will do, so we will have a to do, we will do await prisma.todo.find unique, and here we will write where my ID is to do ID. So compared to SQL where we had to write select basically description and whatever from to do's table or whatever is the table name where ID equals to do ID is something similar, but a little bit simpler syntax, I would say. And lastly return to do. So we have added get to do, so let me send the get to do, and also import it at the top get to do, and let's see we get it or not. So in our Postman, let me try to find the second one. So in our get to do, let me give the ID of 2, send, and we have read AI, so it works. Now let me just add the fourth one, that is my update to do. To do's ID is done, so we have the put. So now we have something called async function of update to do, and here we need to pass three things. So to do ID, then to do DSC, then to do completed. And then what do we need to do? We need to update. So what we will write is simply await prisma dot my to do dot update. We don't need to return anything in this case because the return statement is basically for our response. So we are responding to do updated, so we don't need to return anything. We can simply do one await and whatever. So inside, first of all, we need to give where we want to update. So where ID is our to do ID, and then what we need to update. So for that, we will simply do our data, and the data, the description should be to do DSC, and then the completed should be my to do completed, and that's all. So this is how we can change it. And let's also export this thing, update to do, TODO to do, and also import this thing at the top. So after the get to do, let's import update to do, and let's also test it out. So we have let's say we want to change the third one from read code to write code, because what else will you do by reading so much code? You have to write code also. So in our edit to do, let's say we want to edit the third one, so we will do this to write code, and let's say we will make it true. We are writing a lot of code today, that's why. So now let me just send this thing, to do updated success true, get to do's, and now let's see it is changed or not. So we have write code and true, so it also works. Now we will work on the delete one. So we will have two things for the delete. So we will have async one for the single delete, and then for delete all to do. So function delete to do, delete to do, and we have to pass the to do ID, and this will be simply await prisma dot to do dot delete, and we want to know what we want to delete. So where, again similar syntax, ID is to do ID, and let's also add the delete all together. So async function, let me write delete, what was the name again, delete all or delete all to do's. So we delete all to do's, so delete all to do's, and we don't need to pass anything, and we will simply do you can guess what we will do, prisma dot to do dot delete many, and inside we will pass nothing, that's all. And lastly we will simply export them. So delete to do, and then delete all to do's, that's all. It will break into two lines, and now at the top we will simply import delete delete to do, and then delete all to do's. Now let me just test this thing. So in our delete to do, let's say we want to delete the third to do. So okay, get to do's. So let's say we want to delete the second to do, read AI. So in our delete to do, let me pass the ID of to, send, to do deleted true, go to get to do's and send. So we have 1 and 3, so to do 2 is deleted. And let's also see in our PG admin this thing works or not. So run this thing again, and you have 1 and 3, so this thing works. And now we will use delete all to do's so to see if both of these things are gone or not. So delete all to do's, send, all to do's deleted, get to do's, send, we have empty, and we will go to PG admin, run this thing again, and as you can see we have nothing. So that means it also works. So we have created our to-do list application using Prisma also. So now we have to connect with our client, and which is already connected, because in the same data directory only we have created the API Prisma. Now the only issue that could be there is because of some changes that we have made, maybe the response is not correct or something like that. So let me simply try to run our client, and let's see if it works or not. So let me just refresh this thing. Error in event handler, cannot read properties of undefined, reading new value. I think there is some issue, so write code and then add, and yeah, so there is some issue. and the issue is we basically have to troubleshoot the client that what is the issue, but the issue will be mainly along the lines of maybe, you know, we are sending one kind of response, and our client, that is in our client folder we will have it. So client app.tsx, where is that? Maybe this is expecting some other kind of response, so that is the only reason this thing could happen. So for example, it is expecting, yeah, so for example, when we are posting, it is expecting resp.data.success, and only then it is expecting to change the to-dos. And if I go to my index.ts and my post to-dos, maybe we are not sending it correctly. So maybe for this one we are sending it correctly, maybe for the other things maybe we have changed few things. So you can basically check it out yourself, that how to basically connect with the basically a backend and front end. So once we have the backend, making a front end is not that difficult. We have made many already. So yeah, I would like to close the video at this only. So we have learned how to use Prisma, and we can also make more complex apps with this also. And we have used Postgres. We can also use MySQL, or I believe even MongoDB also. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.